So, South Carolina, what the fuck? What the fuck are y'all doing? Okay, so South Carolina, okay, here's what's up. There's the viral video that's been going around. Here's the New York Times talking about it. Spring Valley High School, South Carolina officer arrest. So there's a girl in class, sophomore, so what, 15 years old, 15-year-old black girl in class. She had pulled out her phone. She looked at it. Teacher got mad because she looked at her phone, gets in her face. You better, give me the phone, give me the phone. Doesn't get the phone, calls assistant principal. Assistant principal comes in, right? He's the mean dog, right? Big dog, little dog. Mean dog is the vice principal. So he comes in, right? He's all like, hey, you need to get out. You need to leave. And it's like, well, I just had it out for a second. Come on, please. She was apologetic. She was like, I'm sorry, it won't happen. I'm not going to pull it out. No, it's no problem. But they wanted to take her property, and then they wanted to escort her out of the classroom. I thought schools were made for the students and for the parents. Aren't those the main interests involved here? A lot of times it seems like the state forgets that. But after, the teacher said something, then the vice principal said something, and then they called the police. The resource officer, the man who's always there, Officer Slam, he's actually Ben Fields. So Ben Fields, he likes beating up kids. He likes smacking them around. That seems to be what he's been doing at the South Carolina school. And then eventually he did it to somebody that people like, and they all, there's like 3 or 4 cameras that captured him. And good, because this is not shocking. This is not like, what is this? This is, I don't know of any demographic, unless you're rich or a friend or the family, which isn't immune to just any, man with a badge and a uniform, any cop with state power who has a monopoly on the use of force. They, just disrespect, just looking them in the eye, not saying, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir, not being like a dumb, obedient dog who's just, he gets to come in, push everybody around, and then gets to be the hero who solved the whole thing. It's fascism. They go straight for the violence. They go straight for incarceration. Right from the get-go, they don't care what the situation was. Teacher is the fascist, is the state representative in the classroom. It's more about her and having her job. She's the only one getting an education. None of the students are actually getting a real education except for in obedience and compliance, especially in the face of injustice. Those kids were very brave to videotape this incident. They probably could have got kicked out too, right? Not allowed to have phones, and now all of them got their phones out. So you didn't really enforce, that rule very well. In fact, it backfired on you, and good, because without the video camera, then we wouldn't even have known what happened. We would just had, witnesses' statements, written testimony, and we'd have to just kind of figure out what had actually happened. So it was great that it was actually on video. This isn't surprising. This doesn't surprise me at all. The state is the police and the politicians, the prosecutors, and also they are the teachers. The teachers are state employees too. The Prussian industrial education system came from just loving your country, your fatherland, being obedient to civil servants, to the king, the Volks, Volks people. They have to drive Volkswagens. The Volks, the main regular people, are just supposed to be compliant, go do their factory assembly job, and have, don't use any of their intelligence whatsoever except for what they've been told to do. And so, not a shocker. There's some things, South Carolina, seriously, what the fuck? One big thing in South Carolina, not only did they have the Confederate flag that was still flying out, they eventually took it down, but, they're taking baby steps, but I think you're starting to see some growing pains here. South Carolina is one of 19 U.S. states that still has pro-corporal punishment in their schools. The majority of American states, of the United States, has said, no, you cannot hit the kids, you cannot beat them up, that is not what we're here to do, to use violence against children. But that's the state. That's how the state maintains their authority, is with violence, is with force. You was talking about, Rand Paul's criticizing Bernie Sanders and saying democratic socialism uses government. Rand Paul uses government. Rand Paul is the government. And so if he's a true anarchist, he could have, just stepped down, right, and just don't participate anymore. But that The state has a monopoly of force. It's nation-state theory. The state is immortal, it's eternal, and never goes away. Since Germany, since France, since Great Britain, UK, Scotland, whatever they want to call that pile of islands over there. But, Kentucky, Florida, the United States, these are states. All of them are states. Yeah, I know there's states and countries, but we have a dual, we got our home state, then we're all Americans. And there's a reason for that, we're actually, I'm a Kentucky citizen, and all Kentucky citizens are part of America. So there's actually two states, two masters that you're sort of loyal to in terms of nationalism. But that's state power, regardless if it's a capitalistic state, socialist state, a combination of the two, it's still state power, it's eternal, it's not going to go away until someone can tell me how we get rid of the state, with, basically just wanton violence, which that would be a bloodbath. The state will fight to its last death in order to keep itself alive. So to think that that wouldn't be a prolonged struggle, a very long struggle. So anyways, the state's going to be there. It doesn't seem feasible to think that it's not going to be there. And since bloody, it'll be bloody if it was attempted with violence, you have to go peaceful, electoral revolutions, green revolutions, evolutions of the mind. We can have alternative societies other places. So anyways, the South Carolina, what is going on with South Carolina? There's the shooting in the back, right, when you had Michael Slager shot Walter Scott in the back. So I guess he did some coke or something and was nervous about some sort of bench warrant, gets out of the car, just starts running. Michael Slager, just don't even think twice, boom, 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 shoots him in the back. Somebody's videotaping him. He's like, who cares? And just, he's running away. He shoots him in the back. He doesn't give chase. He just says, to hell with that guy's life, and he murdered him. And actually, they did something with that case recently. There was a kid in South Carolina who got murdered because of marijuana. He was trying to drive away, very much like Samantha Ramsey, trying to drive away. Officer says, he tried to hit me, he tried to run me, he tried to kill me, and then murdered. And it was identical. He was clearly trying to get away, whereas maybe Samantha had absentmindedly had just kept on going. But that's, that just goes to show you no demographic. That's a white male and white female who both were murdered because they were pulling away. South Carolina, this is South Carolina. South Carolina was just a fascist state. This is sad because Stephen Colbert is actually from South Carolina, tried to run as Republican and a Democrat for president, but neither party had allowed him to do that. So, the big Confederate flag sort of debacle, they're pro-corporate punishment, so the, rulers slapping on the wrist, spanking them, humiliating them in public, the using violence against children is acceptable, and they're allowed to do it without parental consent. They don't even need to ask the parents. If the teachers and the principal want to hit your kids, the principal could take your daughter and just be, giving her little pats on her butt. And nobody says that, has a problem with this. Well, I think it's bullshit. It's child abuse, and even in those states, 19 states, so the majority of America is against this, but even in those states where they've allowed it, they've made an excuse to say that that's the only time child abuse isn't happening, is when the state is laying down the law. So to think that the school system isn't like a prison environment, it isn't, getting your kids ready to just be industrial sort of worker drone bees. They aren't taught independence, they aren't taught democratic values, how they get along with one another, how we make decisions as a group. It's dictatorship, listen to the boss. That's the state power. You will do as the state orders and commands you to. Make sure you love Big Brother. Make sure you love, all their national symbols, the cardinal, the state bird, and coffee tree, which I think it's actually changed. I don't know if it's a coffee tree anymore, but they used to be the state tree. The coal's a state mineral rock. So anyways, that's it's not surprising to me that there's fascism. The last thing I want to mention actually is with the Confederacy. It wasn't just bad, you had Abraham Lincoln, freed the slaves, and then you had Reconstruction when they were going to build upon Abraham Lincoln's dream of an integrated America. Well, that only lasted for 12 years, and then Reconstruction failed, and then that's why black people were segregated, and there was a civil rights movement, and they had to fight for their voting rights and for their freedom again. But Reconstruction had failed, and it wasn't just a failure for black people's freedoms, it was also a failure for righteous white people's freedoms too. Because carpetbaggers, scallywags, these were Yankees who had thought that black people, like the Freedmen's Bureau, that's a Yankee invention, but it was the idea of the Freedmen's Bureau was just to make sure that the race relations were kept even and people weren't attacking, there wasn't any more race riots or lynchings or attacks on black people who were just newly freed. But eventually, with Reconstruction ending, black people were either segregated or exiled, to a different city or state. So were the righteous white people. Any white persons that thought that black people were people too, they were just as guilty. You're not, with the white hatred of the Ku Klux Klan, you got to go too. And so, being in the racial element to this actual case, I think there's something to it. But it's really state power over students who are supposed to have zero power. They had a cell phone. Nothing that she did warranted her getting her butt kicked, humiliated in class like that. That's fucking bullshit. It's ridiculous. The teacher could have just let it go. Just let it go. The teacher, she pulled out her phone. She said she wasn't going to pull out the phone anymore, but the vice principal, the teacher, they just went to press and keep on going further. For anybody that would ever get the roles confused and think that the teachers are really the slaves and the students are the slave masters, even, your master can feel enslaved to your slave, but that doesn't mean that you're enslaved. You're not, doing work for free, being obedient, compliant, capitulating just like the Austrian chancellor did to Hitler without any military force whatsoever. So Hitler just got the Austrian chancellor into a room, said, "Shut your mouth," and the chancellor capitulated just because he was a bully. It was bully diplomacy. And so that was a whole nation. A whole nation bowed down because Hitler was able to get one man to capitulate, to bow down to him. And that's the basic lesson in our public schools, starting from when they are in kindergarten. That's the kindergarten. This is the garden of children. It's a German word. The Prussian industrial education system. We have the buildings and the money and the resources to make public schools a wonderful, fun adventure where we all learn. It's the center of the community. We all can get there, solve our problems in the community there. It's a good middle, community center. But it's not being used like that. In fact, it's very much separate from reality. And they all have their own sort of rules and their own culture that they're all creating, right? That they're all sort of forcing the kids to go through whatever, as long as the principal accepts it and the Board of Education. I'm not sure about the hiring processes, but I do know that the firing processes for teachers are actually really hard. With the tribunal, and then the endless appeals, and then tenure. If you get tenure, you're in there for good. There is fascism, the rise of fascism. We're seeing the rise of fascism with South Carolina, with the two murders that we saw, one of a black man, one of a white man, with the officers throwing the black girl around in class. It's pro-child abuse, there's no parental consent to the corporal punishment. Only 19 of the U.S. states still do this, and I would like to see actually this to get better. And this is unfortunate. It feels like it's growing pains. South Carolina's rejecting their past. They're doing something different that a lot of idiots and bigots have liked. The current system has been somewhat good for them for whatever reasons, and they don't want to let go of it. And so all this thing is freaking them out. South Carolina was also with that Dylan Roof, the Charleston church shooting. That's the reason why they took the Confederate flag down, because Dylan Roof just read some white supremacist website, got inspired, went to a black church. They accepted him. They was praying and singing together. It was a good time for everybody. And so Dylan Roof said, fuck it, and just pulled out a gun and killed 9 people. Murdered, nine people in a black church in cold blood in a Charleston church shooting. So, South Carolina, y'all need to get your shit together. I don't know what is going on in South Carolina. Stephen Colbert, you all need to be more like Stephen Colbert. He seems like a very responsible, reasonable man. He gives advice, imparts advice, out to, teenage girls. I've seen him give advice. So he's got like a fatherly, tenderly quality, sort of like an Atticus Finch, the first Atticus Finch, not the racist, but the non-racist Atticus Finch. And, yeah, come on, South Carolina, get your shit together. We can do better.